Asylum Inc. presents Phobic, an exploration of fear. They never blinked. The eyes began their relentless vigil on a Tuesday, though Regina Winslow would not comprehend the significance of this temporal anchor until much later, when time itself had become as fluid and treacherous as mercury pooling in the cavities of her deteriorating psyche. She had fled to that cramped second-floor sanctuary overlooking Mercy Street, a thoroughfare whose name would prove mockingly prophetic, believing that thick blinds and deadbolts might provide sanctuary from the accumulated weight of unwanted gazes that had driven her from her previous life, like some pestilent miasma. The apartment squatted above a defunct bakery, its windows like cataracts staring blindly into the perpetual twilight of an urban landscape, perpetually shrouded in the exhalations of industry and decay. The walls, painted in shades that might charitably be called eggshell, but which possessed the sickly pallor of something long dead, seemed to press inward with each passing hour, as though the very structure conspired to compress her into something more manageable, more observable. Initially, the sensation manifested as mere discomfort, that prickling awareness that crawls along the nape of one's neck when standing too long in a crowd. The cashier at the corner market, a woman whose eyes held the flat, reflective quality of black glass, would maintain her stare long past the completion of transactions. Her fingers lingering against Regina's palm as change was exchanged, skin cold as porcelain. The man on the crosstown bus, angular and pale as a praying mantis, never seemed to require the mercy of blinking, his gaze fixed with the unwavering intensity of a predator selecting its prey from a herd. But it was the couple at Rosewood Cafe who first suggested that this persecution transcended the merely human. They sat motionless as mannequins, their faces turned toward her with the synchronized precision of sunflowers tracking the arc of their burning god across the sky. When she relocated to a corner table, they pivoted in unison. When she fled to the restroom, she could feel their attention boring through plaster and ceramic tile with the inexorable persistence of radiation. Upon her return, they had not moved, had not, she realized with mounting horror, so much as shifted in their chairs or lifted their untouched coffee cups to lips that remained parted in expressions of beatific expectation. The apartment, she convinced herself, would provide respite. Behind triple locked doors and blinds drawn tight as burial shrouds, she might finally exist unobserved. This delusion persisted for exactly 72 hours. The building across Mercy Street rose like a monolithic tombstone against the perpetually overcast sky, its facade punctured by 9 windows arranged in 3 neat rows. During daylight hours, these apertures appeared vacant, dark hollows that suggested rooms long abandoned to dust and shadow. But as dusk settled over the city like a suffocating blanket, shapes began to materialize behind the glass. Silhouettes that possessed the unsettling quality of being simultaneously human and utterly other, their forms too still to be living, too purposeful to be dead. Regina began maintaining her own vigil, peering through gaps in her blinds with the obsessive dedication of a naturalist studying some exotic and dangerous species. The watchers never moved, never shifted position, never turned away. 9 pairs of eyes, though she could not see them directly, she felt their weight like lead blankets draped across her consciousness, maintaining their ceaseless surveillance. On the 7th night, she dared to stare back. The confrontation lasted 4 hours and 23 minutes, measured by the digital clock whose red numerals provided the only illumination in her darkened apartment. She pressed her face against the cold glass, her breath fogging the window in irregular patterns that seemed to spell out words in languages she did not recognize. The watchers remained motionless, their forms etched against the darkness like figures carved from obsidian. But gradually, she began to discern details that her rational mind rejected, even as her eyes recorded them with crystalline clarity. Their faces, when glimpsed in the intermittent glow of passing headlights, possessed an anatomical wrongness that transcended mere ugliness. Features arranged with mathematical precision, yet utterly devoid of human warmth or recognition. Eyes that reflected light like polished stones, never blinking, never wavering in their attention. And their mouths, those obscene apertures that remained perpetually agape, as though preparing to speak words that would unmake reality itself. The mirrors began their betrayal gradually, with subtleties that might have been dismissed as fatigue or stress-induced hallucinations by someone less attuned to the gradual erosion of consensus reality. At first, her reflections simply lagged, a delay of perhaps half a second between movement and mirrored response, as though the image required time to process and interpret her actions. Then came the directional displacement. She would turn left, but her reflection would turn right, creating a disorienting symmetry that left her questioning the fundamental laws governing physical existence. But it was when her reflection began looking past her, over her shoulder, towards something that existed behind her in a space she could not turn to observe, that Regina understood she had become trapped in a web of surveillance that transcended the merely optical. Her mirrored self displayed an awareness of watchers that her physical form could neither see nor escape, its eyes tracking movements in dimensions that geometry could not accommodate. She began covering reflective surfaces with sheets and towels, taping black plastic over the bathroom mirror and turning picture frames to face the wall. The apartment took on the appearance of a crime scene, or, more appropriately, a morgue prepared for the reception of something too terrible to be viewed directly. Still, the sensation of being observed intensified. They pressed against her from all directions now, no longer content to merely watch, but somehow reaching through the barriers that separated observation from contact. Sleep became impossible. Food turned to ash in her mouth. Her skin began to take on a translucent quality, as though the constant attention was slowly bleaching the very substance from her cells. She could feel them behind her eyelids when she attempted to rest, their unblinking vigil continuing even when darkness should have provided sanctuary. They never blinked. This became her obsession, her mantra, her curse. While she required the mercy of closing her eyes to lubricate the delicate tissues, they maintained their watch with the relentless consistency of surveillance cameras, recording everything, forgetting nothing. The video call with Dr. Hendricks, her therapist, a kind woman whose own eyes had always seemed refreshingly normal in their capacity for human expression, marked the final dissolution of her tenuous grip on consensual reality. Midway through their session, the screen flickered with the irregular rhythm of a failing heartbeat. Dr. Hendricks froze mid-sentence, her mouth open in preparation for words that would never come, her image locked in digital amber. But Regina continued moving, continued breathing, continued existing in the terrible space between observation and being observed. In the corner of her laptop screen, the small window that displayed her own image remained active. And there, in that rectangular portal into some parallel dimension, where different laws governed existence, she watched herself blink. Once, slowly, deliberately. She was not blinking. Her physical eyes remained wide, dry, burning with the accumulated salt of unshed tears. But her digital reflection possessed an autonomy that suggested consciousness independent of her own. It turned its head, not toward the camera, but towards something that existed in the space behind Regina. Something that cast no shadow in her reality, but which her electronic doppelganger could observe with perfect clarity. The laptop died with a sound like escaping breath when it struck the wall, its screen exploding into a constellation of crystalline fragments that reflected her terrified face in 1,000 impossible angles. Each shard contained a slightly different version of her expression, suggesting that the moment of impact had somehow splintered not just the device, but reality itself, creating infinite variations on her horror. She ran then, barefoot across pavement that seemed to writhe beneath her feet like the skin of some vast subterranean creature. The hospital emerged from the urban murk like a lighthouse offering salvation to the shipwrecked, its windows blazing with fluorescent benediction. But even as she stumbled through the emergency department doors, leaving bloody footprints on antiseptic tile, she could feel them following. The watchers had learned to travel, to maintain their vigil regardless of distance or obstruction. Now, secured behind reinforced walls and sedated with enough pharmaceutical mercy to fell an elephant, Regina Winslow pleads for absolute darkness. The irony does not escape her. She, who once sought only to remain unseen, now begs for blindness, for the blessed absence of vision that might finally provide respite from her tormentors. But when the lights die and darkness settles over her cell like a burial shroud, her screams echo through the corridors with the primal terror of something being slowly devoured. "It's worse when I can't see them," she whispers to the darkness, her voice barely audible above the whisper of recycled air through ventilation grates. "When I can't see them, I know they're everywhere." The Watchers have learned patience. They've learned to wait in the spaces between photons, in the gaps where light fears to travel. They inhabit the pause between heartbeats, the silence between words, the terrible interval between blinking and sight. And they never, ever close their eyes. Because something that never blinks never needs to miss a moment of what it's watching. And Regina Winslow has become the most fascinating subject they have ever observed. A consciousness trapped in the amber of its own paranoia, preserved forever in the moment of its own dissolution. They watch her sleeping. They watch her waking. They watch her screaming. And they will continue watching long after she has forgotten how to be human, long after her eyes have surrendered their capacity for tears, long after her mind has accepted that observation is not persecution, but purpose. They never blink, and neither, anymore, does she. Attending notes. Dr. Elias Morvan. Patient continues to exhibit extreme photophobic responses, coupled with paradoxical demands for visual confirmation of her environment. Sedation protocols prove ineffective. Subject maintains hypervigilant state regardless of pharmaceutical intervention. Of particular note, during periods of enforced darkness, surveillance equipment has recorded anomalous audio phenomena that do not correspond to patients' documented vocalizations. Additionally, security cameras monitoring patients' cell have experienced recurring technical failures, displaying imagery that our technical staff describe as temporally displaced or dimensionally inconsistent. I have begun experiencing difficulty maintaining eye contact with patient Winslow during our sessions. Her gaze carries a weight that seems to press against the observer with almost physical force. Several staff members have requested reassignment after reporting sensations of being watched during off-duty hours. Recommendation: consider transfer to Facility 7 for advanced containment protocols. Personal note: I've installed blackout curtains in my office. The windows face the same direction as patient Winslow's former apartment. Sometimes, late at night, I find myself checking to ensure they remain tightly closed. "They never blinked," she says. But that's not entirely accurate. They blink when they want you to see them blink. And that's when you know you've become what they've been waiting for all along. If you found yourself stirred, unsettled, or just a bit more wary of shadows, consider offering a like to feed the entity that powers these tales. And should you subscribe, you may yet survive to hear the next whisper from the void.